Today's video is going to be real, raw, and necessary, because this is the kind of conversation most men only realize after it's too late. See, cheating. It rarely starts with a kiss or some reckless night. It usually begins in silence, with distance, with shifts in attention, with the quiet pulling away that most guys ignore until the damage is done. Before anything physical ever happens, something else changes first. Her energy, her tone, her emotional presence. And if you're not paying close attention, you'll miss it. You'll miss the early signs she's already checked out, even if she hasn't left yet. This video isn't here to feed paranoia. It's here to give you awareness, to help you read between the lines, not of her messages, but of her behavior. Because when a woman starts pulling away emotionally, her words and her actions will start painting two very different pictures. Today, we're breaking down 4 phrases that may seem harmless on the surface, but underneath, they often signal emotional detachment, manipulation, or even a quiet exit plan already in motion. This isn't about blame. It's about clarity. It's about protecting your peace, your emotional space, and your self-respect. So if you've ever had that gut feeling that something was off, but you couldn't put your finger on it, stick around. The signs we're about to go over might be the exact insight you need to walk away stronger, with your eyes open and your dignity intact. Let's get into it. Sign 1. He's just a friend. Ah, yes, the classic line, he's just a friend. At first it sounds harmless, a name that pops up now and then, a familiar laugh when she reads a message, a story where the same guy keeps making appearances. You want to trust her? You tell yourself you're overthinking. But deep down, something doesn't feel right. And that's because he's just a friend often isn't just a friend. It's a signal, not always of cheating, but of something shifting, a change in emotional loyalty. Because when a woman goes out of her way to explain why another man in her life is no threat, that explanation isn't for your comfort. It's usually to keep him close without confrontation. She might make him sound completely safe. He's gay. He's married. He's like a brother. But if you listen closely, those words are strategic, not accidental. The more she tries to justify his presence, the more you have to ask yourself, why does she need to? If he truly didn't matter, there'd be no need for a defense. Pay attention to how she talks about him. Does she mention him when she doesn't need to? Does her tone change when he texts? Does she push for you to meet him, hoping your discomfort will just disappear? But it doesn't. Your instincts stay alert because you feel something she won't say out loud. The real test isn't in what she says. It's in how she reacts when you express concern. If she gets angry, dismissive, or turns it around on you, it's not because you're wrong. It's because you're getting close to something she hasn't admitted, maybe even to herself. A woman who's truly invested in you will protect your emotional safety. She won't insist on keeping someone around if she knows it's tearing at your trust. But if she does, if she invalidates your feelings or gaslights you into thinking you're just insecure, then the issue isn't trust, it's divided loyalty. And here's the truth. No one wants to say out loud. Emotional cheating doesn't start with betrayal. It starts with loyalty quietly moving elsewhere. It's the frequent texts, the late-night conversations, the laughs you're not part of, the parts of her heart that used to belong to you, now shared with someone else. And sometimes, she doesn't even realize it's happening. Or worse, she does, and doesn't want to stop. And when that relationship does evolve after a breakup, you'll realize it had already started, long before things ended. I've heard it 100 times. She swore they were just friends, laughed at every concern I raised. 6 months after we broke up, they're together, married, like the ending was already written before mine began. He's just a friend isn't always a lie, but it's often an incomplete truth. Because when a woman chooses to risk your peace to protect another man's place in her life, she's not choosing you fully. She's leaving the door open. And trust me, someone's always standing on the other side. Real love doesn't make you feel like you're competing with a shadow. It doesn't leave you questioning your worth while someone else gets the best of her attention. Trust isn't built by telling you not to worry. It's built when someone chooses to protect what matters to you, even when you're not around to see it. And if she won't protect your heart from the threat of someone else's presence, then just a friend might be just the beginning of a much bigger truth. Sign 2. When she twists the truth against you. There are moments in a relationship when your gut whispers, something's off. Her voice feels colder. Her stories start to slip. Her energy changes. And you can't quite explain why, but you feel it. So you ask. Not aggressively, not accusingly, just with honesty. But instead of clarity, you're met with deflection. Suddenly you're the problem. She says you're overreacting. She calls you insecure. She turns your question into an interrogation against you. What was supposed to be a conversation becomes a courtroom, and somehow you're the one on trial. This isn't miscommunication. It's manipulation. It's what we call gaslighting, and it's not always loud or violent. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle, just confusing enough to make you doubt what you saw, or worse, doubt who you are. You catch her sitting too close to someone, or you see a text that doesn't sit right. You feel it. Your instincts scream it. But when you bring it up, she doesn't address what you saw. She attacks the fact that you noticed it all. And when that doesn't work, she flips the entire script. Maybe you're the one cheating. Why else would you accuse me of that? Now you're not just defending your question, you're defending your character. That's not defense, that's projection. It's a tactic designed to make you lose your footing while she avoids responsibility. And then the inconsistencies start stacking. Last week it was a girls-only night. Now suddenly a guy was there, and it's no big deal? You're told you're reading too much into it. But your intuition knows better. It's in those small contradictions where the truth begins to leak out. Not in big lies, but in shifting stories. Tiny edits to reality, always meant to protect her, never to protect you. And over time, this does something dangerous. You begin to second-guess yourself. You start trading your gut instinct for her explanations. You stop trusting the voice inside you, the one that's been right more times than you can count. Let me tell you this clearly. Your instincts are not paranoia. When your peace starts to feel threatened, when your mind feels foggy after a conversation that should have brought clarity, that's not love. That's mental warfare. And you don't need a full confession to trust that something's off. There's a reason you even felt the need to ask. There's a reason her answers didn't sit right. There's a reason your spirit feels unsettled. As the old saying goes, if it feels wrong, it is. Gaslighting only works when you agree to doubt yourself. But once you reclaim your clarity, once you stop letting her rewrite the truth, you begin to see the situation for what it is. Not a misunderstanding, but a strategy to avoid accountability. And you deserve better than being made to feel crazy for noticing reality. Sign 3. She wants space, but not to be alone. She says she needs space. The words sound soft, even thoughtful, like she's taking time to grow, to reflect, to breathe. But more often than not, the space she's asking for isn't empty. It's already being filled. filled with distraction, with someone new, with conversations she used to have with you, now quietly shared elsewhere. This is what we call a soft exit strategy. It's not a breakup, not yet, but it's the prelude to one, a way to emotionally detach without the confrontation of walking away completely. She frames it as growth. She might say things like, "I just need time to work on myself," or, "It's not you, I just need to figure things out." But behind those words is often a door, and that door isn't leading inward, it's opening outward to someone new, to another life she's already starting to test without you. And here's how you'll know. The texts slow down, the warmth fades, the long calls turn short, cold, and busy. Physical affection becomes rare, not because she's overwhelmed, but because she's disinterested. She begins spending more time with friends you've never met, and one name might start to come up more often than before, always followed by the phrase, "He's just a friend." But deep down, you can feel it. She's not finding herself. She's quietly building a life without you, while keeping the door cracked open, just in case she wants to come back. This is where most men make their biggest mistake. They chase. They plead. They try to prove they're still worth staying for. But chasing someone who's already pulling away, that only makes her run faster, because she's not asking for space to heal the relationship. She's asking for room to detach, to test her independence, to explore options, to see how life feels without you. And the more you reach for her, the less she respects your center. The strongest thing you can do? Don't argue. Don't beg. Don't try to fix what she's already decided to leave. Honor her request. Give her space, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Let her actions reveal the truth. If she uses that space to drift further, to grow closer to someone else, to rebuild a life without your presence in it, then you'll know. The truth was never in her words. It was in her distance. Real strength isn't in holding on. It's in knowing when to let go with dignity. A man who can stand still, who can remain grounded as someone slowly walks away. He's not weak. He's wise. He's powerful. And eventually, she'll look back and realize the space she asked for became the silence where you disappeared. And in that silence, she'll remember not just a man who loved her, but a man who knew when to stop giving himself to someone who already let go. Sign 4. The final exit, disguised as kindness. There's a moment in some breakups that doesn't come with screaming. It comes with silence, a calm tone, maybe even a soft smile. And then she says it. You deserve someone better. It sounds like compassion. It sounds like grace. But it lands like a sentence, final and cold. Because behind those 5 words isn't encouragement. It's an exit, not an honest, direct goodbye, but a carefully wrapped version of, I've already left. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. She might still be physically there. She might still be responding to texts, still sitting across from you. But emotionally, she's long gone. You'll feel it in the way her eyes no longer hold you, in how her touch feels routine, not intimate, in how the conversation always stays surface level, no depth, no spark, no connection. That phrase, you deserve better, isn't her trying to lift you up. It's her way of putting down the weight of her own guilt. Instead of saying, I've lost feelings, I met someone else, or I don't want this anymore. She says something that sounds noble, because it spares her from being the villain. And worse, it places the emotional labor of the breakup on you. Now you're not the one being left. You're being given a gift. Your pain is repackaged as an act of mercy. It works best when you're still holding on, when you still believe there's something left to fix. That's when you respond with confusion, or worse, gratitude. Not realizing what's really happening. She's not asking you to understand. She's asking you to let her leave clean. And this is where most men fall into the trap. They offer to be better. They promise to listen more. They try to rekindle what's already burned out, thinking they can still prove they're worth loving. But here's the truth. When a woman says, "You deserve better," she's not searching for solutions. She's delivering a verdict. And trying to fix things from this place? It's not strength. It's self-betrayal. Because a woman who still wants you fights for the relationship. She doesn't ghost her feelings behind poetic farewells. So what do? You don't beg. You don't ask for the full story. You don't try to decode what doesn't need decoding. You listen. You hear what her words are truly saying, and you let her go, not with bitterness, but with dignity, because your silence in that moment is your power. It tells her that you won't cling to someone who's already made up their mind. There's a line worth remembering. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And when she says, "You deserve better," she's not lifting you up. She's letting herself off the hook. So let her walk away. Because real love doesn't end with a phrase that sounds sweet but cuts deep. Real love either stays and fights, or walks away honestly. Everything else is just a carefully worded goodbye. Don't settle for half effort. Because cheating, at its core, is rarely sudden. It doesn't explode out of nowhere. It unravels, slowly. It starts with silence, with a shift in tone, with words that sound innocent, but signal something far deeper. He's just a friend. You're being insecure. I need space. You deserve someone better. These aren't just phrases. They're emotional breadcrumbs, clues that the connection is fading, that something sacred is no longer being protected. A woman who's still emotionally invested will do everything she can to protect what she values: your peace, your presence, your trust. But a woman who's checked out, whether she admits it or not, will speak in ways that shift the weight onto your shoulders, through guilt, through confusion, through half-truths masked as kindness. And this is where too many men stay far too long. Not because they're weak, but because they hope. They hope that love will bring her back. They hope their patience will fix what's breaking. They hope that silence doesn't mean surrender. But here's the truth. You are not responsible for convincing someone to stay. You are not meant to decode cryptic phrases or chase clarity that's being withheld. Your job is not to cling. Your job is to observe, protect, and walk when the signs are clear. Because love that needs to be chased isn't love, and a relationship built on confusion is a slow death for your spirit. A man of value doesn't beg for honesty. He recognizes when emotional loyalty has been replaced, and he doesn't argue with distance. Instead, he moves with quiet certainty, not out of anger, but out of knowing what he brings to the table, and never settling for someone who keeps getting up from it. So ask yourself right now, are you accepting less than what you deserve? Are you hoping her words mean something different than they clearly do? Because healing doesn't begin when you get closure. It begins the moment you choose clarity. And clarity is this: if she wanted to stay, she would. If this video gave you something to think about, something you needed to hear, then drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been on the receiving end of one of these phrases? What did you learn from it? Your story might help another man walk away with peace instead of pain. And if you're ready to become the kind of man who doesn't chase, but leads with quiet strength, emotional intelligence, and self-worth, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for more conversations that bring you back to yourself. Until next time, protect your heart, strengthen your mind, and never forget, silence can be strength when it comes from knowing your worth.